Just 5 years ago, Bowen Oliver was barely able to walk 50 metres. Today, thanks to groundbreaking Australian research, this 15-year-old and his family are looking forward to a future that was previously unimaginable.
Because of the treatment, I hardly use my wheelchair anymore. I'm able to get out a bit more and I can walk further, and I don't get as tired as I used to. And yeah, generally its quality of life's improved.
When Bowen Oliver was born, there was no indication that there was any problem. But by the time he was 5, he'd already suffered a number of seemingly unrelated health problems.
I guess things were starting to get worse. Initially he'd had some problems with his hips and his walking, and it was deteriorating. He had a scoliosis, which just was looking just worse. Everything seemed to be just not adding up correctly.
It took 2 years and a consultation with an orthopaedic surgeon to find out that Bowen Oliver had a rare genetic disorder, Maroteaux-lamy syndrome.
We had always envisaged our life was perfect, and to have him diagnosed was awful. I can't describe it, and I don't even want to go back and think about it.
Generally, patients present in maybe their 5 to 10 years of age with skeletal problems, stiff joints, and an ability to not grow.
Professor John Hopwood has spent the last 30 years trying to crack the secrets of these diseases and find a cure. He heads a group of over 100 researchers at Adelaide's Women's and Children's Hospital. Maroteaux-lamy is one of 50 such disorders which occur when people don't produce enough of a particular enzyme to remove waste from their cells, leading to a build-up of toxins.
It's definitely an essential missing enzyme without which they'll have progressive problems with their joints and breathing.
The team developed the only treatment for Maroteaux-lamy syndrome in 1997, but tens of millions of dollars were required to take it to the next stage, clinical trials, and an American drug company had the funds to take the risk.
You really needed a big investment from a company, like a company like BioMarin, who would go the next hard yards of putting lots of money into clinical trials to prove safety and efficacy.
Bowen Oliver was one of the 5 fortunate Australians to take part in the clinical trials of the drug Naglazine in 2002. It was a gamble that paid off.
Pre-treatment, it was just a prognosis of a downhill deterioration. That's what the disease does to these children. It just slowly, it's a deterioration until it's terminal. Rather than that downhill scale, we're looking at an uphill scale. And he's 15-year-old and we're thinking about what career he's going to have. Well,
essentially it corrects the underlying deficiency in a specific enzyme which breaks down complex sugars, and to that extent it's, well, for most of them life-saving, for some it's life-transforming.
Go. You've had this done before, haven't you?
Yeah.
So you know what it's like.
For sufferers, the drug is able to halt the degenerative effects of the disease. It's just lucky for Bowen Oliver that Australian researchers were in a position to insist that the clinical trials take place in Australia.
And it was John Hopwood who pushed for a second phase of the treatment to happen in Australia. I can't imagine it would have come to Australia. It came to Australia because of all the research and the work that was done through John Hopwood and his team in Adelaide.
Naglazine was approved for use in the United States in 2005. It's available in Europe and Australia and has just been approved for use in Japan. But it's expensive, costing almost $100,000 per year. Bowen Oliver is fortunate. Under the original trial agreement with BioMarin, he can continue the treatment free of charge. He'll undergo a 3-hour infusion once a week for the rest of his life.
But one of the major driving forces has always been closeness with the families and the patients, to see them and to gain from their enthusiasm about the work that you're doing and the way that they deal with their life issues. That's been very, very rewarding, and I don't think I could have done it without their support.
Well, the work is outstanding. It's internationally significant contribution, and it's been appropriately recognised.
Australian medical researchers stand to benefit substantially from the sale of naglazine. Under the agreement with the company, royalties will be split between John Hopwood and the 16 other inventors, the Adelaide Women's and Children's Hospital and the South Australian Medical Research Fund.
Now it's a multi-million-dollar royalty stream and growing that is going back to Australia thanks to Dr. Hopwood's work. And this is, I think, benefiting the Australian economy.
For the small number of Maroteaux-lamy sufferers who are still awaiting access to the drug but can't afford it, there may be relief in sight. The government is considering whether naglazine should be placed on a register of life-saving drugs, making it free of charge. But for some it will be too late because their condition is far too advanced. But for others like Bo and Oliver, it will transform their life. What are your plans for the future?
Well, I think I'd like to do something in performing, like writing or television, acting. I didn't expect to really ever think about what I'm thinking of doing.